Hey, what is going on everyone? Vega here for SerpentX Tech. In today's video, we're going to be actually modifying the Kaspa KS0 Pro firmware to improve the hash rate. Now, I already talked about this in a previous video, so if you're going to check that out, please do so, because we talked about improving the thermals first before even applying this firmware. Because when you apply this firmware, yes, you might be able to get the extra hash rate, whether it's 240, 260, 340 giga hash. You're going to be stretching out the thermal solution on this thing if you don't upgrade or modify it.
And before we continue, a huge shout out to Coin Mining Central, who helped us get our hands on the KS0 Pro. But if you're looking for Kaspa mining equipment, they got you covered, ranging from the 0 Pro all the way to the KS3, 3M, L, 2s and 1s. Some of the older generation models have been phased out, so you're only going to be able to get those from the secondhand market. But if you're looking for ASIC mining equipment or just crypto mining equipment in general, check out the new arrivals. They got everything from Bitmain, Iceriver, WhatsMiner, so on and so forth. They'll be linked down in the description. And let's get right back into the video.
We already modified our particular device. So you can see here temp 1 sitting around 51 degrees Celsius, temp 2 sitting around 35 degrees Celsius, whereas compared to a completely other stock Kaspa KS0 Pro, temp 1's at 57 and temp 2's at 45. So just with some Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut as the thermal paste and upgraded thermal pads, we've improved thermals quite it's all right. But what's most important is the 120 millimeter fans, or decent fans, that you have variable control over to manage this device's particular thermals before you even flash the firmware. And also, there's a couple other recommendations, right? Tswift is urging everybody that it's not liable, use at your own risk, so on and so forth, everything that we talked about in a previous video. But before we even modify it, they do call out a couple things. One, the MOSFETs need to have heat sinks on them. They're rated for around 125 degrees Celsius, but when we're pushing this thing with the new firmware, it's going to be pushing it pretty hard. So just put some heat sinks on there. They have links and everything to the glue. I will also link it down in the description, all the components that I use, the heat sink, the glue, so on and so forth, thermal pads and more, the fans. And then don't use USB fans because they won't be sufficient enough. And you could use the 4-pin built in on the actual PCB or board within the Kaspa KS0 and KS0 Pro, but I don't think it's going to provide the output voltage wise to run your larger fans or your ASIC type fans, so on and so forth. So there's going to be some recommended ones down in the description. So as long as you understand the risk and you get good thermal pads, good thermal paste, then you're good to go. I will link to this down in the description as well as all the components. Now it's just a matter of getting it flash. When you talk to Tswift, you're going to need to, I think they're asking for validation that you have heat sinks on the MOSFETs, right? Like it says required, please apply these MOSFETs or heat sinks to the MOSFETs, so on and so forth. And then you need to provide your MAC address to them because it is locked per device. And then they're going to send you a file. When they send you a file, you see over here, we got all the various versions, right? So 260 giga hash, and then 270, 280, and so on and so forth. And there's even right now, if you look at the recent post, there's a 340 giga hash one, right? But again, you got to do these modifications first before you can even consider applying that firmware. But how do we even flash it? Well, once we're in the user interface, the first step is to go ahead and factory restore it back to defaults, which is exactly what we're going to do right now. Is we're just going to go ahead and click on factory reset, but it's going to reset our pools and everything. So make sure you have this backed up somewhere. Make sure you know what your settings are and all that good stuff, and then hit restore factory settings. You can also do it by hitting the reset button on the machine or holding the reset button, and then just allow the miner to restart. Once it comes back online and we are able to access it again, with the default login, remember it's going to reset that as well. Now we could go to firmware upgrade and add the file that I'm going to show you here in just a moment. Let's do the factory restore first. Once you hit that factory restore button, you're going to see something at the top, operation succeeded. You're just going to click OK and wait for the device, because obviously it's going to reboot, and make sure it comes online, and then log in with the default information once it populates. You will see now that it did default back, and it's on somebody else's Kaspa address and pool address. We don't want to leave that on long term, because then we're mining for somebody else and not for us. So now let's go ahead and go to the firmware upgrade, and we need to select file, but I have not extracted this folder yet. So you want to extract whatever Tswift and company provides you to a certain location so you know where it is, because we need to grab this int file right here, int underscore KS Pro underscore update. And we need to launch and update that one first, so use that file first. So here it is, we have it selected, hit open, and then hit update. It's going to be on your right hand side, you'll see it. And let that do its thing. The system is going to restart again, per usual. And then once it restarts, now we can upload the specific firmware with the desired overclock setting, and it's going to restart one more time. So just be patient, let that rock and roll, and we're going to go ahead and go straight to, we could step it up, start at 260, 270, and then 280. We're going to just go straight for the Juggernaut, go to 280, because this thing has been modified and prepped for the 340 gigahash. It just told me operation succeeded. Now it's asking me, do I want to confirm the restart of the machine? So, okay. Now the machine's going to restart, and we need to give it time to get back on the network. If we try to load it, it's going to be blank, and it's going to take a minute to show. But once it gets back online, now we can go ahead and go back to firmware upgrade and select this particular file in just a moment. While we're waiting for that to come back online, this is the pictures of some heat sinks, which is 6 by 6 by 3, right? So 6 millimeters by 6 millimeters wide and length, and then height is 3 millimeters. You want to put it on the 4 VRMs, as I mentioned in my previous video. As they call out, make sure you give them a nice little cleaning. And then the thermal epoxy is the Janelle G109. Thermal tape would work. Thermal epoxy is a little bit better. You just want something with high thermal conductivity, watts per meter Kelvin. And let's refresh one more time. Here we go. The machine's coming back online. So now we can go back to firmware upgrade, select file, and let's choose a 280 gigahash. Now it does specify in the README file to use the following sequence. So 280GL, and then if not, the regular 280G, and then the 270GL. So use the L versions first. If that doesn't work, then try the next one down. So without the L, okay? So now we're gonna select that one, update, let that rock and roll, and restart once again. You will see the same prompt, operation succeed, click OK. It's gonna ask to restart, click OK. And once it restarts, it should be able to, as long as you have the adequate cooling and thermals and modifications, including power supply, which you need at least a 230 watt power supply or higher if you want to run the big boy 340 gigahash. I believe some people are running like 180 watts for the 260, 280. Don't quote me on that. I believe Hobbyists, Red Panda, a number of others, Chump Change have showed this as well. I'm just showing you how to actually apply the firmware. There you go. Now we're just waiting for it to restart, and we're going to bring you guys back as soon as the hash rate stabilizes over 30 minutes. Don't forget to update your pool, please. Otherwise, you're going to be mining for somebody else. But now it's just a matter of giving it time to reflect correctly. As I notice, I have a double tap right there, and make sure the hash rate shows as advertised. Also, don't forget to update the password for your machine. Don't leave it the stock or root or default password, please. I know in some ASICs, especially when you're working with large amounts of ASICs at a mining farm, it's best to do that so you can easily access it via a flashing software like LuxOS, BrainsOS, or whatever it might be. But just always update your default password, especially on Hive. And you can see that the firmware has been updated by that beautiful chin of Tswift's logo right here on the left-hand side. So we are now rocking their firmware. It's just a matter of allowing it to run for X amount of time. Let's see what the temps get up to as well as the hash rate. So it's been over 30 minutes, as you can see in the top right. It says 32 minutes. And yeah, we're looking pretty good, sitting over almost 300 gigahash over the 5-minute time frame, but 293 gigahash over the 30-minute time frame. So our cooling solution is definitely giving us a little bit of an edge at the pool. Yeah. 293, so we're 13 gigahash over the advertised. Temps are a little bit concerning. So temp 1 is at 68 degrees Celsius, while temp 2 is at 39 degrees Celsius. Just for comparison, once again, the stock one is 57 and 45 at around 208 gigahash. So before we even modify the firmware, I just wanted to show you the difference just replacing thermal paste did. It didn't do much on the front side, but it did a lot on the back side. What I mean by that is you can see the top temperature on the left here is 52, and then the one on the right is 40. whereas right now the machine is running 51 and 35. So even though we only dropped temperature 1 down by 1 degree Celsius, we did drop the temperature 2 down 5 degrees Celsius, and that's really going to help us out when we're trying to modify and increase the hash rate of this machine by a lot, increasing the power draw and so on. So even though it didn't do much stock to stock, I believe the Crown 9 Extreme is going to really help out as we continue to push this particular device hard to get hash. So we're getting that extra, 80 plus or minus giga hash from the firmware update, but thermals are definitely going to be of concern when we're trying to push the 340 giga hash version, which I will be working on obtaining. However, you can help me by making sure to like this video, sharing it out with your colleagues and friends and with one another, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. So firmware update, super easy to do. If you did have issues for whatever reason, it does say that if the hash rate doesn't meet your expectations, to try the different version. So if you tried the 280GL and it didn't work, try the 280G. And if that didn't meet your expectations, 270GL, so on and so forth, and just stepping down. And just understand that you need a power supply of 180 watts or greater. Make sure you install fans to blow through the actual overall heatsink design. Those side panels, take them off. Get the meter box side panels with the holes in them that are 3D printed. Make sure that you're using solid cooling and have MOSFET cooling as well, heat sinks for those MOSFETs. But that's gonna do it for today's video. Do me a favor and check out the links in the description for all the components utilized, as well as Tswift's Telegram. Hit the like button on the way out, get subscribed, hit notification bell to stay up to date, and check out some links in the description to help support the channel and what we do here. And I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Man, the temp is higher than I would like to see. We'll see what we can do about that.